Rarely do you have a legend in the truest and purest sense of the word. But I get to talk to him on the phone. This man makes time for me, people, and I'm excited about that. Lawrence Prezman here, Meet the Experts. Thank you, everybody, for logging in, checking us out live. Jim frickin' Feist, 77 years old, or young. My dad's 74. You look fucking good, man. Welcome to the show.
Lots of good drugs over the years, Lawrence.
No doubt,
Thank you.
Jim. No doubt. But also a lot of good everything, man. I mean, you have as colorful a life as it gets. You got a gorgeous wife. You're a dog lover. You're athletic. You're an investor, a mogul, a pioneer. Any other adjectives I can use?
I've been called a lot of names over the years, Lawrence, but we don't have to go into all of those.
Strangely, we will, Jim, because
Okay.
neither of us have much to do. I know your wife is magnificent, but you're 77, so you can't be that busy all day long.
Well, what did I do this morning already? I took a look at the Taiwan baseball, and I had the under in the one game, which won. That was you probably never even heard of these things, but
No, Jim,
um,
I have not. So you're handicapping Taiwan baseball.
well, here's what I do. Matter of fact, I'll start out in Canada because I know you're in Toronto, and I wish all the people in Toronto and all of Canada well because I know these are tough times for everybody, and we're having a tough time here in the States. And I spent a lot of time in Vancouver. I have a lot of investments there. I've had a lot of investments there. I don't right now, but I love the city. I love the people. I love the country. I love the system. I like the way you do things. And I did very well there. I spent quite a bit of time in 2003 and 2004 there, and I visited many times. So I invest in real estate. I invest in different things. I play the stock market. I play the commodities market, the forex, and the currencies. And I'm investors in horses, and I also bet horses. So I'm doing Will Rogers Downs today in Tampa, and the tracks that are open. So I keep busy. I'm really not lacking anything to do. I mean, I know I'm missing baseball. I'm missing the NBA, the Final Four. Missing that was terrible. But that was for a lot. And there's a lot of bad things going on in the world. There's a lot of death. There's a lot of sickness.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confusion about, you know, politics. We're not going to get into politics or religion.
We're
And
not allowed.
I,
We've been banned from discussing politics on this show or
and
any
I
other show at WagerTalk.com. But we do have cooking videos up
well, that's
at our
Well, I'm not
channels.
up there because the only thing I can do is well. I mean, not great, but well. I can boil water.
Yeah, well, no, dude, you should check out our cooking videos. Carmine Bianco, one of our best handicappers, a soccer machine. I mean, Jim, in all seriousness, I know you bet a lot, and we're going to talk about that. I think we got the best soccer better on the planet, Carmine.
Sure.
And he makes the meanest freaking lasagna ever. He just put a video up on our channel, full. You just need to follow the instructions. And another one's going up tomorrow, limoncello gelato. So yeah,
Oh,
we're busy at Wager Talk, but not as busy as you. But I gotta ask you right off the bat, and I got a lot of freaking questions for you.
okay.
You mentioned you're betting Taiwanese baseball. My question to you is, how the hell do you know what's going on in Taiwanese baseball?
I don't. But it's like the smart people surround themselves with smart people,
That's why you've
and
always been my friend, right?
that's right. You're right. I don't know anything about Taiwanese baseball, but I do know baseball. But I'm just leaning on some people actually from Taiwan. I visited there 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and I have some friends there, and they know what they're talking about, and I follow them. I don't try to be an expert at everything. Now, I had my own stable of horses, so I do understand horse racing, quite a bit,
Yeah.
and I do bet horses. I do a lot of that handicapping myself because I enjoy it. I am an animal lover, and I had my own stable, and my horses were the best cared for in the world, believe me. I've made some money over the years doing that, and I also am investing in currencies. That's a tricky business. You can really get upside down real quick if you're not careful.
Yeah.
And play some of the markets. It's very volatile. It doesn't make sense sometimes. A lot of times it doesn't make sense, but we have such the way with the coronavirus and the deaths and not knowing where they're going to open the economy and how they're going to open the economy and all that stuff. This is really a disaster for a lot of people, and we just hope that they can get through it. There's so many people dead, and who knows when it's going to slow down or stop.
Yeah.
So we just we just hope it doesn't get too bad.
Well, I'm hoping we're on the back end of it. I want to welcome a lot of our regular guests. Liam, nice joining. He has just commented that Taiwanese basketball has been good for him the last couple of weeks. Carmine's with us. My vice president, Vivian, is with us. Zekin, welcome to the show. Jim, we're going to talk today about sports betting, life, real estate, currencies. We're going to talk about crypto. We're going to talk about your exploits at the Playboy mansion. Your woman around, or is she can't hear the show?
Well, she'll probably listen to it online later, but that's okay. Not a problem.
We're going to talk about how to dye your beard because, as everyone can see me, it's completely gray, and 77-year-old Jim is sprouting a Randy Macho Man.
Well, Dave Koken and I have been doing that for a lot of years. So Dave's a good friend. I know he works with you, and he worked with me for many years, and I still, off and on work with him.
He loves you.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he loves you. And the funny thing is, and let's get right to it, everybody who meets you, Jim, and I can speak specifically about myself, loves you. I was telling Vivian last night, you have an incredibly warm energy that surrounds and emanates from you. You're a very paternal figure in a lot of people's lives. With that said, you really went through the worst stages of this industry. You started in this industry in 1968. You've seen it all. We're going to talk about how you basically owned the entire 900 number market later, but you've gone through the 900 numbers. You ran a boiler room. We hate boiler rooms, flat out. Say it the way it is. So what is Jim Feist's legacy going to be, Jim?
Well, it depends on what people have about everybody. I mean, you can have it about the president, you can have it about the religion, you can have it about anything. They have preconceived ideas in their mind, and they believe they're right, and they might be, but they're going to go to their graves with those thoughts, and you're not going to change their minds. I started in the business in '68. I came from 3 businesses prior to that. In '68, I was 25 years old, and I had great success between 18 and 25 or 28. Or 25, I should say, before I even got into, I owned horses, I ran horses, I had a computer educational business that when computers were developed in the early 60s, it was mostly collating and key punch and stuff like that, and I was involved in helping kids that couldn't qualify for college to get jobs in that industry. I did very well, and the kids did good too. And so I was very successful in life. I played professional pool as a teenager.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about that as well, because I'm guessing there was a lot of hustling going on just based on your personality. But listen, I'm going to re-ask that question, Jim.
Okay.
There are people out there, say it the way it is. You came you were around in an era, you dominated an era with Jeff Allen and and Stu Feiner and all of these guys that were double-siding games, that were calling people, that were taking a percentage of their bets. We today in 2020, we call places like, Fox Sports, ESPN, we're like, let's get gambling shows on. They're like, you're a handicapper. The industry has got a bad reputation. That bad reputation comes directly as a result of your era, but not necessarily you. I'd like you to speak to that, Jim, because you really are grouped in with a bunch of really terrible people, and I know that you're one of the nicest guys I've ever met.
Thank you. Well, it's a tough thing to get yourself separated from. I ran, we call them boiler rooms. Telemarketing has been around a lot longer than you and I have been around. But back in '68, if you think about it, and you're a pretty good handicapper, Lawrence, what would you have done to market yourself in '68? Think about that.
Jim, it's funny. I have a list of questions written down, and one of them is, how the hell did you find customers, and how the hell did you get them to pay? '68, I would have probably done mail. I would have bought lists and hard mailed to the people, set up phone numbers where they called in.
We did.
I don't know if you were able to take credit cards at the time, but I'm guessing Western Union was probably highly used.
Western Union was very big, mail-in checks. There was really very difficult to get paid. Back in the day, Roger Stanton at Pro Football Weekly, or Football News, and then there was the ones out of New York that we used to run ads in. We'd send out direct mail. The phones would ring. We developed a newsletter that, just a couple of us were doing it. It was fun. And how that happened was, I had sold a business in Philadelphia, and actually started with a $20,000 loan from a friend of mine that was my auto mechanic, and I bought him out for $6 million, and I sold it for 12.
So wait. He loaned you $10,000 and turned it into $6 million.
It turned into 12 million. It was actually, he invested 20,000
and cashed out at $6 million.
He's cashed out at 6, and I sold it to a guy named Art Cohen for 12.
Congratulations to him and you, but more him. You did all the heavy lifting. That guy just sailed on your back.
Yeah, his name was Chuck Cesari. He was a great friend. Took care of my cars. We were good.
Well,
we all made well, but after that, I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida, and I owned my own horses there. I had stables. I ran 7 horses, and I was betting sports. And one of the problems was, in those days at least, that was late 60, it was 68, 69. I think it was the beginning of 68. When the problem was, when you lost, you had to pay. I mean, obviously that's what you do, but when you win, you can't always find the guys to pay you. So I said, this is bull. I can't do this. I can't be paying. I'm always going to pay. I don't owe anybody. I never did. But I can't get paid. I mean, these guys are not honest, and that you're dealing with all illegals. There was no offshores in those days. There was no online books in those days like today. It's all different. So when I moved to Vegas in '70, but I had started the business in late '69, and the only way we could ever reach anybody was by direct mail or phone calls. Well, we bought lists from all the publications, and you could find the phone numbers by the addresses and stuff. Right. So we used to call people, and it was just a couple of us that would do it, because it's like you, Lawrence. You're a pretty good handicapper, and you want people to know that you're good, and you want people to know that you can help them. So using the telemarketing is not a bad business. It's not a terrible business. It's what the people say on the phones. If you don't control them, right, that's bad. And which is why I no longer do it, because I couldn't control them anymore. We at one time in Vegas, we had 1,100 employees. I was running 900 numbers. I was running publications. I was doing credit card repair. I was doing sports service stuff. I was a very busy guy, making a lot of money. And we had like 80 8 to 90 salesmen on the phone, and I had 6 monitors that would monitor their phone calls the best they could to try to find out if they were doing something wrong. And the problem is, and here's the problem is when you put people on incentive, and I don't know what any other way to do it, but you put them on incentive.
Yeah, they push like crazy, man. I get it, and you can't control them all.
Well, no, the problem is if you don't try to control them, they're going to do everything they want to do. And we tried to control them, and we did a damn good job of it. And I will say this: anybody that had a complaint always they got a refund. They always get their money back. We never had a problem with that. But there, some people in the industry, just like automobiles or politicians or whatever you want to talk about, there's good ones and bad ones. Not everybody that's a telemarketer or has been a telemarketer in the sports service business are bad people. And you're not bad people. But I go to WagerTalk, I look at the site. You guys are promoting your products. You're trying to find the best of each capper to tell the people how they can win for them. And a lot of your guys are very good. Some of those guys I know very well. And yourself. So it's not a game where anything we do, you're going to win 80, 90%. You're going to win 56, 68, 58%. If you're really, really good and lucky, you can get into the 60s, depending on volume, of course. And that's the truth of it. But telemarketing is not a bad thing. Telemarketing by bad people is a bad thing. Just like a gun isn't a bad thing. A gun with a bad person using
we're not going to get into that, Jim. So the bottom line, you knew what was going on. You knew that these guys were giving out both sides of the plays and then doing the math equation from 100 guys at 1-0 to 50 guys at 2-0 to 25 guys at 3-0, et cetera, et cetera. Your business stayed. I mean, you guys were legit. You just used an aggressive marketing approach.
We were very aggressive. And, I was on television, USA Network, FNN, a lot of the networks, but USA mostly, for 36 years. And I was the only show that was allowed on that network.
Yeah, which I want to know, how the hell did you even get them to allow that to happen?
Because I ran a clean shop, and I let them call us under all kinds of names to figure out what we were doing, if we're doing anything bad. And they got the pics, they documented everything we did, and not once in 36 years. 36 years. And we not once were thrown off, even questioned. And believe me, they wouldn't let anybody else on there. And we were running a lot of shows. We're spending anywhere from $3 million to $6 million a year in marketing just on that network. I mean, we did, for a good 10 to 12 years, we were averaging anywhere between, let's say, 18 and 25 million. The biggest year was 28 million in business. We started an industry. I mean, we didn't start it. Mort Olshan, Otis Goss, people like that, Richie Bomsey, his brother, they all started it. I came like a year later. I mean, Mark Lawrence was in the same business when he was in Ohio. He's a great guy. No, we did it differently. I had a different model because I came from an industry where we used a lot of telemarketing back in the 60s. Between 60 and 67, when I sold, we did a lot of telemarketing. We'd set up our appointments. We'd make everything was used on the telephone. I mean, that's why they invented the telephone, for God's sake. But today, you don't need to. You can use texting. There's a million things you can do. There was no social media back then. No internet. No Facebook. No Twitter. I mean, hell, we got a president here that runs the country on Twitter.
Yeah, we're not allowed to discuss him, Jim.
I'm sorry.
Jim, one of our listeners, Zekin, just asks, was Jim a music composer for an Indian film? I'm going with no.
No.
No, you don't play any instrument. You're not a musician, are you?
I'm actually adopted, but my real father was a professional musician. My real mother, and she raised me. I was adopted by a different father, but I always had my mother. My mother was a professional singer, And my adopted father was also a professional musician, and I'm not talented music-wise at all.
Jim, let's get to betting. You bet. You bet the plays you release. You bet more than that. You're probably big in in-game betting now. A lot of people don't know much about your actual betting. People talk about Billy Walters. Obviously, he's got an iconic, legendary name inside of this industry. But the people who know, I mean, you are right there with him. Oh, I think we just lost Jim Feist. God, I don't know what's going on with the internet today. Jim, are you back? The same thing happened yesterday. It's so windy in my area. We're getting thrown off of the internet. I'm gonna.
Somehow I lost you.
Yeah, that's okay. You're back now, Jim.
Good.
Bottom line, tell us about your bets. Like, forget your handicapping. Put all that stuff aside. Can you talk at all about the type of dollars you're betting, or how often you're betting, or anything in that regard?
Well, I bet daily. I bet constant. I'm constantly betting, whether it's, and not always just sports, but if you're talking just sports, I bet football, I bet basketball, both college and pro. I bet baseball, basketball. I mean, I bet tennis. I bet not too much tennis. I shouldn't really even say that. Golf, I bet quite a bit, and horse racing. I mean, that's my sports portfolio. Fortunately, knock on wood, been pretty successful. My betting range is going to depend a lot. And I have to ask, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Because I can't tell that I'm there because I can't see you. um, my betting range might be as little as $200 to $300, depending on if I'm not going well. But if I'm going well and I have a good run, I can get myself up into the thousands per unit per game, because I do follow this. Betting is a streaky business, and I know you, and I know you're good at what you do. But I also know, like all of us, we can get times we just can't pick a winner, no matter how good you are, and right you are, and how right your pick was. Something happens and it doesn't go well. It's the same thing with poker, which is something else I play a lot. I'm not a professional. I'm not as good as guys like and I know you're very good. But you know how the bad beats can come, and they just don't make sense sometimes.
So how do you bet, Jim? Like, we tend to bet 3, 4, 5% of our plays on a bankroll. Your range is a little higher. You're anywhere from 300 to thousands. How do you decide?
Well, it depends on what my available bankroll is. If I start with $1,000 and I'm betting, small units, $50, $30, $100, whatever it is, and the bankroll gets up there in the 40, 50,000 range, which, I usually start my football season out with 200,000, and that's my limit. If I lose the 200,000, I'm gonna quit. But
has that happened?
Never. No. I've had years when I just kind of break even or lose 5 or 10%, but I've had years when I've made quite a bit, because I will press when I'm winning. I will do that. I do not follow a standard betting cycle. When I'm winning, my bets go up. And I followed some people that know how to gamble, and even poker players that know how to gamble. And believe me, you get on streaks. I mean, 2 years ago in college basketball, I went on a streak, and this is documented actually. I was 28-3. That's sick. You can
ridiculous.
But during that streak, I was not betting $50 a bet. I was betting quite a bit, and I made a lot of money.
You just kind of use that blackjack strategy where you start with 20, you win 25, 30, 35, et cetera, and you just keep on pressing.
Well, it's more complicated because you're betting so many games, and in a blackjack game, you have one hand. Sometimes maybe you're betting two hands, but when you're betting a lot, you do have to start out with that 3% of bankroll. I mean, you have to do stuff like that, and You just can't, because it's so much easier to go broke than to get rich.
Isn't it amazing? 0-10 is so much easier than 10-0. How does it work like that?
I don't know. I've never been able to figure that out.
It's remarkable.
You have to have discipline, and you must keep your emotions out of it. You have to do what you're doing. When you look at a team, do not look at the name on the jersey. Look at what the numbers are and the you know, you kind of have to look at the name on the jersey. I mean, if you're talking Belichick and you're talking about the string they've had and how many years they had of covering spreads enormous, you have to look at the jersey. I understand. But you also know that when you bet those kind of teams, you're laying a bigger price than you should be. But still, they kept covering. So
60% over 18 years, something like that.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. It makes no sense whatsoever. But
Jim, do you bet parlays?
Yes, 3 teamers. I do.
6-1 payouts?
A little bit better. 6.5.
Okay.
Seven's the right number, but I try to get 6.5. I bet a six if I have to, but that's the best parlay.
Yeah, no, if you're going to bet parlays, and everybody listen to this, it's important, and I know you're all parlay bettors out there. If you're going to bet parlays, 3-team parlays are the closest to true odds out of any particular number of parlays. To give you an example, a 2-team parlay pays 2.6 to 1, which is 1.4 off of the 4 to 1 that it would be a true payout. A 3-team parlay for most people are 6 to 1. A true payout is 8 to 1. It's the closest percentage to a true payout, and really the only type of parlay you should ever bet. So you do 3-team parlays. What about teasers?
Well, let me get back to the parlays a little bit. If I have a card, well, first of all, my best sports are college basketball and pro football. When you're talking about point spreads, I am not as good at college football. Ironically, I have no idea why. I'm just not. I don't have the same feel for it as I do the pros. The pros just blend with me. But if I look at a card and it's 14 or 16 games that weekend in the pros, and I bet a lot of totals, I bet first halves, I do a lot of stuff. I will do a lot of round robin 3-team parlays.
So are you doing, in the round robins, are you doing like a 4-teamer, but only the combinations of 3, or are you doing?
Only 3. Only combinations of 3, but it might be 10 teams. So you're doing
2-teamers inside of that?
Only 3s. Right. Only 3 parlays inside. I might have 15 games.
Right, I got you.
Sides, but it's only 3-team parlays. It's round robin of only 3-team parlays.
Got you. That makes sense.
That's all I do. And believe me, if you first of all, you got to be decent at being a handicapper to do any of this. I mean, you can't throw darts. You really have to work. And I listen to a lot of people. I listen to a lot of podcasts. There were some people that I really enjoyed following, and unfortunately we lost one of them last year. Dave. Dave Malinsky. Brilliant.
I know you follow Ralph Michaels. You were telling me that you're impressed with him and some of the other WagerTalk guys. I appreciated that.
Well, yeah, and Dave Koken's worked for me for over 30 years, I think, and Dave knows his stuff.
Dave's the best college football bettor in the world. I've never seen anybody better.
I'll tell you what, he is good. He's very, very, very good, and I'm not going to question that. But he really knows baseball.
Yeah,
this guy knows his shit.
Oh,
Excuse me.
And Brian Leonard as well, right there with Dave. The two of them are exceptional in baseball. I appreciate you pointing that out about Dave.
Before we get off of it, I want to just compliment you. You started a business with Johnny and Marco, and I think that's the 3 main guys. And WagerTalk is a fabulous product, and I go there often. It's a great product. You guys done a fabulous job putting that together.
Thanks, Jim. And we've got so much more coming, brother. We've got a Bunch of new services coming out. We've got new websites coming out. We redoing our customer service program, our promotional program, our pricing strategies. We've got so much more video content coming. It's absolutely unbelievable. I mean, we are very busy during this quarantine time. So yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. Just want to grab a comment from one of our listeners. And guys, if you have any questions for Jim, feel free to put it up. Yog wanted to know, how do you arrive at a 6-1 on a 3-team parlay? Yog, just log into any sports book at -110, put 3 teams together and make it a bet at $100. It'll pay you $600. That's 6-1. It's not exact. I mean, you can get -108s and -105s. Which will change that number around a little, and same will -20s and -130s. But if you're betting a -110 across the board on a 3-team parlay, you are getting 6-1. The true odds are 8-1. Jim, let's talk about sex. How many Playboy bunnies did you do?
Oh, I can't talk about that. I can't do it. But
okay, so tell us about your relationship with Hugh, your soirees at the mansion. Can you fill us in on anything?
Well, first of all, there was a time in my life, it was the late 80s. I bought a lot of phone numbers.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And the fellow this is a true story. I'm not going to mention names because it's not nice to do that. But he was a very good-looking model-type businessman.
You can say it's me, Jim. It's fine.
It was Lawrence. I'm sorry. Well, Lawrence, you would have been too young.
I know.
But this guy was dating a very famous actress. And his main focus in life was running sex lines on 900 numbers. And he called me up one day. I knew him for a lot of years, and I hadn't talked to him for a long time. And he called me and he said, Jim, would you be interested in buying some 900 numbers? I'm making a lot of money with them, and I can turn them over to you, and I know you have the money to pay for it. Would you be interested? And I said, well, what are you running on these things? He told me sex lines. And I said, well, I don't want to be in the sex. Some of my other relationships with other business partners that I have, and it would have. So I said, if I can use them for other purposes, I would be interested in buying them. So I flew down to LA and I met with him, and he went over his numbers, and the numbers were amazing. But I couldn't be in that business and have shows on USA and all the other stuff that I was doing. It would have affected those relationships. So I said, well, I'll buy them. And I did. I paid him $1.7 million for the lines. And I converted them into sports lines and Hollywood talk lines. And I did a lot of TV shows with actresses and actors and telling everybody what they were doing every day. And we were billing 180
Twitter by
million.
phone.
Pardon me?
Twitter by phone.
Yeah, except it was the voice of the actors and actresses. That's what everybody loved.
Yeah.
That business, I paid him $1.7 million, and we did $180 million a year.
Mic drop? That's what it sounded like there, Jim. Congrats. No, you dropped something on your table. Well, it's unbelievable. So back to the Playboy Mansion, Jim.
Okay. Well, part of the reason that I got connected with the Playboy Mansion was those 900 numbers. Okay. So I went to Playboy and I said, I want to put all your playmates on these 900 numbers, and they could fly into Vegas, and we'll put them up in hotels, and they can come to my studio, which I built a studio, recording studio, and they would come to the same complex where we had the sports service, and all the people who worked in the sports service loved, and the limos pulled up and the girls came out of the cars. They just loved it. And matter of fact, I think they'd have worked there for nothing just to be there to see that.
That's what Dave Koken was saying.
Yeah. Well, that was fun, and I got invited to the Playboy Mansion a lot, and I knew Hugh Hefner, and before he got married, and then after he got married, everything calmed down. It wasn't quite as much fun anymore, but it was a lot of fun, and we made a lot of money, and Playboy made a lot of money, and I met a lot of very interesting people.
That's about all we're getting out of Jim in regards to the Playboy Mansion.
I could tell you about the grotto and the swim up bar and all this stuff. Believe me, in the aquarium and
Who's writing your book, man? Who's writing the Jim Feist story?
I have to, I started that years ago, but then I was told I was too young to complete it, so I have to get back into that again.
I have
Maybe
a
I'll.
writer for you if you want.
Okay, I'd love to talk to him.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
your life is so colorful, that is for sure. Jim, we got a listener, Yura, who asks, what is your handicapping process? And, that question's interesting because I'm guessing it's changed a lot over the years. I mean, look, when you were young, say 1918 or something, you probably did it 14 hours a day. Now you're probably just relying on guile and connections. I don't know what your process is, but do you want to tell us about that?
not
Maybe.
not a
Yep.
problem. Not a problem. I'm perfectly willing to share. It's every sport is different. I do look for value. I do look for, if I can, going against the public if possible, contrarian if possible. That doesn't mean I won't go with the public if I think they're right. Um, I look for, if a line should be in, let's say football, if the line should be 2.5, I'm not going to lay 3 or 3.5 on the game. I'm just not going to do it. I try to stay very, very precise with what I'm doing. It's all about money. I don't care if I make money on throwing darts or shooting pool or football or baseball. It's just all money. It's a reason we do it. I'm not, so I start off. I do make my own numbers, especially in college basketball. I do make my own numbers. And they can go to, if they, I don't know if they can go to my site and look for fast facts. And we in college hoops, we put numbers up, and there's 7 different power ratings that I generate. And the reason I do that for college hoops is because there's too many teams. I can't do it. I can do it in pro football by myself without a computer, but I can't do that for 300 basketball teams. So when it comes to the NFL,
Yeah,
I
let's
know the
focus on the NFL.
okay, I know the teams, I know the players, I know the coaches. There's different ways to handicap. I mean, you can be a fundamental handicapper, you can be a trend handicapper, you can be statistics. There's different guys and do different ways. I mean, like you're going to have Mark Lawrence on, I think, and he
Next
does it one
Tuesday.
way, and he's very good at what he does. And Ralph Michaels is similar. And he's very good. And Dave Cloken's more of a fundamentalist.
Yep.
And I heard Rob Vino on the other day. He's excellent also. And he's a fundamentalist. Well, I'm a combination of all those things. I read. I'm an insatiable reader. I get up 3:30, 4 o'clock every morning, and I will work on my stuff until probably 6 o'clock every night, and then I'll have dinner with my wife and or go out or something
And by
like
the
that.
way, guys, I'm sure as you don't need to see, you just need to know. Jim Feist's wife is, well, Jim batted 800, way over your head, my friend.
Well, I'd say more than 800, but thank you.
Your
I think
wife is beautiful, and I've met her, and she is divine. Such a wonderful lady.
I got very, very lucky. I've been very lucky in a lot of things. I mean, yeah, we all have had problems, and my health has been good, and I have bumps and bruises and injuries and everything else. But I've avoided all the major bad things that people have to go through.
So
And
back to your NFL handicapping. So you're working all day. You're
well,
doing
first
your
of
own
all,
power ratings. You're deciding what the spreads are before they come out.
yes, but I am very flexible because I will talk to people and I will read, and I am not so stubborn to think that I know it all and I'm going to be. I'd like to put a lot of things into this brain to figure out stuff. And like say, well, I looked at it this way and I thought this is but then I'm looking at, man, they got 2 weeks of travel coming up, and maybe I didn't look at that right, and I have to go back and check that. You're not going to beat the bookmaker laying 11-10 or even 105 on stuff, unless you are smarter and very diligent, because you're just not. Some things are just even money, and if you're laying 11-10, it's like money against sandpaper. It's going to go away. So, I look at the numbers. I will get into some things that maybe your listeners can. I'm a big offensive line guy. I really believe that the nucleus of an offense is the offensive line. Yes, you will have your quarterbacks that can function without it. Russell Wilson, he's just absolutely a magician.
Patrick Mahomes, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got guys that can overcome, but the offensive line, you give me a good offensive line and an average quarterback, and you might have some championships.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, Trent Dilfer, Doug Williams,
even
Tom
Brady. I mean, Tom Brady he's not the most athletic guy in the world. He's very talented, obviously. Will go down as one of the greatest ever. A very accurate passer, but he didn't get hit a lot. And they had a system. I mean, that's just such a smart organization. It's unbelievable. But the offensive line I focus on that. The quarterback, like, you get these kids coming out of college, they're going to get drafted into spots. If a kid who has all the talent in the world goes to a bad situation, he never developed because he had a bad situation, a bad offensive line, a bad quarterback coach, a bad, whatever. And he just didn't develop because he didn't go to a system that could develop him. And but you have some that are really good at what they do, and they develop quarterbacks and develop running backs. And hey, hats off to Christian McCaffrey for the money he got. He's a hell of
well deserved.
He is unbelievable.
So, Jim, you're studying offensive lines a lot. I take it you're studying defensive lines against that too. I mean, that's really one of the areas where you're focused on.
Well, if you get a pass rush against a good offensive line, it's going to nullify how good it is, because you get those end rushers and stuff. I mean, the game is different today, of course, than it used to be, but you have to look for strength against weakness, whether it's the defense stronger than the offense. You have to look for strength against weakness, and you have to be careful. I admit, everybody out there gets hung up on this team or that team, and boy, they won by 40 points last week, and it's not that easy. You really got to dig into it. And I mean, yards per point is something that we all look at, and yards per play, and if this team has real good corners and safeties, and but they're playing against a team that doesn't run the ball and have to throw it all day. I mean, there might be a problem there. That's a matchup issue.
Well, and let me give an example as well, because I know for me, I bet a lot of totals, and I study drive charts, and the examples that I like to give out is, you have the Patriots play and the total is 48, and the week before they won 35-3. And people are like, well, 48, I mean, you're going to get 35 out of the Patriots every week. Of course it's going to go over 48. And what they don't realize is the time it took for them to put those 35 points up. Not only does that affect how often they get the ball, but it really affects the other team and keeping them out of rhythm and keeping them off the field, which is why the Patriots have always, the score difference in the Patriots games have always been so large, whether it's 28-10 or 35-17. There's always been a big gap because, contrary to what people believe, unlike Peyton Manning or Kurt Warner leading the greatest show on turf, the Patriots take a long time to score their points. So they might end up at the end of the game with a lot, but their opponent doesn't.
That goes back to what we talked about before, and that's excellent stuff, Lawrence. They controlled that. You always saw the small running backs, and they would over the middle,
James
5 yards,
White on the wheel. Yep.
absolutely down. And the time of possession in the game
Yep.
is amazing. And their system, they're just smarter than most.
Yeah,
I mean,
Belichick's a disciple of Parcells, and we saw what he did when they won the Super Bowl against Buffalo. I think it was 44 minutes of time in possession, something like that. Hey, guys, everyone, thank you for joining us. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. Make sure to hit the bell so you know who's coming up. The schedule for this week is great. Tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, Carmine and Nick joining myself for the inaugural first ever The Soccer Show. Thursday will be a draft preview show with Jared and Kelly at 1 p.m. Eastern. Friday, The Soccer Show as well. And then don't forget, of course, Minty and Teddy Betting 101. Tomorrow, Kelly, VR, Gianni the Greek, and Minty doing Straight from the Strip, and our horse racing show on Friday with Marco D'Angelo and Sig. Jim, let's move away from sports betting and talk about your days as a pool hustler. I was an amazing pool player in my youth. I really stuck to... God, I've gone blank. Like actual pool, like with the red balls and the pink.
You're actually talking about snooker.
Yeah, snooker. I was a snooker player through and through. I liked the small tip at the end of my cue. I was really good at spins, and I had trick shots up my sleeve. But I never made any money off of it. You did. Were you a pool shark or just a guy that bet money?
I originally was pretty good, and I had a guy named Butch Sharon who backed me, and I was 15 years old at the time. A hell of a story. And Butch owned some bars and stuff, and he was quite the character. And he said, "I got a guy I want you to play," and he said, "I'll back you," because I was a kid. I mean, I had no money, except what I could win at a table or something. But he says, "I'll back you, and I'll give you 25% of what you win, and you don't pay anything if we lose." I said, "Okay, that sounds great."
Yeah, good deal.
When are we going to do that? He said, "Well, we got to go to the airport." I said, "Where the hell are we going?" Got to remember, I'm like 15 years old. And he said, "We're going to fly to Kentucky." True story. And we flew to Kentucky. My parents knew him very well, which is the only way I could get away with going. And they knew him very well, and they actually treated him like he was my uncle. So they trusted him for me to go with them. And I went down there, and we won $10,000.
Yeah, and did you travel around playing?
Well, later, as I got older, when I got to my 17, 18 years old, I traveled around. We went to myself, Frank O'Donnell, and Kelly Reynolds. We got in my brand new car, and we traveled from Pennsylvania into Ohio, into Illinois, and we ended up on the West Coast. And we did it by shooting pool, and it was quite the fun ride.
Do you still play?
It got to the point where I had a table, and nobody wanted to play, and it got to the point where it just took up too much space in the house, and I said, "Nah." Those were the days. You got to remember something. I mean, you're talking about 55, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't play like I could never be the same player, and the eyes don't.
Well, listen, I'll play you pool for as much money as you want, so long as we can do double or nothing on chess right afterwards.
Well, I'm a pretty good chess player too.
Then we should play. I don't think I've lost a chess game in 40 years.
Well, the problem is, Lawrence, you're no slouch at anything. So I may not be even money with any of these things.
Yeah, well, you kick my ass in pool. I mean, that is for sure.
Now, wait a minute. You just said you play me pool for any amount of money. That doesn't
No,
sound
so
like
long as I can win it back in chess, because I don't lose in chess.
Oh, okay.
Chess is a game where I know I'm going to win my money back. But you're probably
that
like...
mean
Sorry, Jim?
that puts a lot of pressure on me to win at pool, because otherwise I'm going to go broke.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, chess is interesting, and you'll probably find yourself in the same place as I am. I'm in no man's land. If I play anybody who doesn't study the game, I kill them. If I play anybody who studies the game, I get killed. There's almost nobody to play.
Well, it is tough. I mean, when I was, there was a period of time I actually went to chess school.
Oh, my Lord. I was in clubs.
You were?
Yeah, I didn't know there was a school, though.
There was a school. And I went to school for chess. And I got to be pretty good. But, God, chess, I haven't played chess in probably 25 years.
So I'll tell you a quick chess story, and I have only played a few games.
Oh, we could play online. I think there's a site called It's Your Turn.
Yeah, I would love to play you. I mean, neither you or I have played in ages, but I'll tell you a quick story. I've got a very annoying friend named Brian. Me and him were flying down to Vegas about 3 years ago. We're on a very, very empty airplane, and I sleep on planes. It was 8 a.m. I was on like 3 hours sleep. He'd been, he's on 9 hours sleep, and he forgot to bring headphones, and they had no TV. So I crash, and about half an hour into the plane ride, he's getting so bored. He leans over. He's like, come on, wake up. I need company. Wake up. I got to do something. I'm like, no, let me sleep. Bugger off. He's like, I'll play you chess. I'm like, if I beat you, will you let me go to sleep? He's like, nobody ever beats me in chess. I'm like, okay, I will play you chess half asleep, and then you're going to let me go to sleep. Jim, no joke. After the first game, he was like, I didn't realize I was playing against someone who knew how to play. I'll take it seriously. 3 games I played him. I beat him all 3 games, consecutive time, 12 minutes. And then I went back to bed. Jim, you were a marathon runner. 11 marathons. What was your best time? Did you break 3?
Oh, no, God, no. Jeez. No, 3.5, maybe 3:45 in that range. No, three is like, my God, I'm never that fast. But I did run, I ran a lot, and I ran around the world, a lot of places. But I ran a lot of, 11 marathons, but I ran a ton of 10Ks and half marathons.
What was your best 10K time? I'm going to blow you away when I tell you mine, because I was a competitive runner up until I was in my 20s.
What was my best 10K? Oh boy, you're talking 6 miles. 6.2. I can't remember.
That's fair. You're 77. What did you eat for breakfast?
I had two protein waffles.
Well, at least you remember that. My best 10K time was 36 minutes. I ran a 6-minute mile for 6 straight miles.
Oh, wow.
Not bad. Then I met pot and women and never ran again.
I could run a 6-minute mile, but I couldn't do it for 6 straight miles.
My fastest mile was 4:17.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but I couldn't get past 10K. So I was between a mile and a 10K runner, but I ran very competitively.
You knew how old I am. How old are you?
I'm 51 in 2 months.
Ah, okay. Well, happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
In 2 months. You're a young guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what old guys say. My kids would beg to differ. What kind of music you like, Jim?
I'll go back and listen to the 70s and the 80s.
Classic rock.
And classic rock. But there's a lot of good stuff out there today. And I'll listen to classical music. When I'm working, I usually have some music on, like relaxing music, like Zen, or even sounds of oceans or stuff like that, just to keep me relaxed. because it gets pretty intense, especially live. We didn't even talk about live betting. I mean, that's the whole new thing.
Are you doing a ton of it? I love it. I
I
think
said,
it's best. I think the best live betting is in hockey.
and see, now I don't bet hockey, so I don't know hockey. But I didn't grow up with hockey. You did, and you're probably a really good hockey player too.
No, I do play hockey twice a week, but I stink. But live betting hockey is really great, Jim, because of the empty net goal and the overtime opportunity. And that just doesn't, the empty net goal specifically does not exist in any other sport. So if you're in a situation where, you have an over and under of, 5.5 or so to start the game, if it's 2-1, going into, with 10 minutes to go in the third, that over and under is down to 4.5. You don't need 2 goals in a 2. You don't need, to get to 5 at 2-1. You only need 1 goal because games don't tie. So you're guaranteed, if the right team scores, it's 2-2 and you win, you're over. If the wrong team scores, it's 3-1 and you have 2.5 minutes at an empty net to win, you're over.
Wow.
That's why, to me, in-game betting in hockey. Now, with that said, basketball in-game betting gives you real great hedging opportunities because you're getting these huge runs. We had Tony Finn on last week. He says,
Oh, by the way, Tony Finn, by the way, I've seen a lot of his stuff. He's very good.
Jim, I think Tony is probably one of the best all-round sport bettors in the world. But in NFL, Jim, I'm not joking with you. His NFL record last year was 71%. That's documented. And since he joined WagerTalk for the last 6 years, his NFL record is 60.7%. That is freaking ludicrous.
It's excellent. Excellent.
But back to in-game betting. Yeah, hockey to me is where it's at. Tony says he can find a 10-point middle in a basketball card almost every night in-game betting.
That's, in-game betting in basketball I do very well with. I like the tip that you just gave me on hockey because I have not been playing those, and that's pretty obvious. The bookmakers have to find a way to protect themselves on that, don't they?
Well, I mean, look, you ultimately are paying juice, but at the end of the day, a 2-1 game with 10 minutes to go can still end 2-1 or 3-1. So, it's not like it's a guaranteed bet. It's just hockey is one of those weird things where it takes a second to score a goal, and a goal is very precious. It takes a second to get a basket in basketball, but a basket isn't precious. There's 100 of them scored in a game.
Correct.
So, with power plays, I mean, the things about hockey that lend itself to the in-game betting, I mean, if you're down 2-1, even with 5 minutes to go, now you've got defensemen pinching on the other team, which opens up the ice for the team that's ahead. You have, power plays, which gives you a 5 versus 4. You have empty net opportunities. There's all of these smaller variables that you don't find in other sports. Warwin just mentions he likes NBA live betting. The algorithm gives us the advantage if you get the best bet in fast enough. And yeah, Warwin, I mean, that's ultimately the problem for me with basketball in-game betting is Carmine isn't texting me the score every 2 seconds. And what I mean by that is I'm not sitting in front of the TV all night, but my boy Carmine will say, hey, it's 2-1 with 10 to go, totals 4.5. And I'll be like, bet. So I don't need, the NBA, it's too consuming, man. Like sitting there and betting in-game in the NBA is insane.
Well, one of the problems is you don't have a life.
Yeah, and that's why I don't do it. Because I want a life.
Yeah, I mean, if you do that all the time, you're not going to have a life. You're not going to have a wife. I mean, just not to make a joke, but you can't start early in the morning and do this all night through all these games and have anything else going on in your life that you can pay attention to. So it's a quality of life issue.
I like betting in game in football as well. I mean, my biggest bet I've won in 10 years, probably 10 years, was betting when KC was down to Tennessee just
Ah,
a couple of months
yeah.
ago, and I bet them
Oh,
all the way up, Jim. So I
that
was
was
betting. I probably had 10 bets on Kansas City, and they ended up covering every single one of them. I mean, that was probably the most successful betting day of my life, was that one game. And then I did it again the next week. Oh, we've lost Jim again. We are going to bring him back on, and then we will start wrapping this show up. I'm just going to call it. The internet is so poor, but guys, let us know if you want anything, any type of shows during the summer. Let us know if you want us to talk about, do a show totally on in-game betting. Let us know. We are here to serve you guys, and I can't thank you all enough for logging on a regular basis. Warwin, I want to see your name more often, my friend, and I don't see Elliot. Superman is obviously with us like he always is. Dude is our MVP. I'm trying to get a hold of Jim, but we're only going to do another 5 or 10 minutes anyway. One of us is having internet issues, and I'm guessing it's Jim because I'm going live right now.
Trying to reach.
I do want to tell everybody I've started watching a new show. We started yesterday, myself and Vivian. It's called Hannah. It's on Amazon Prime. It is unbelievable. In all seriousness, it is. I'm 4 episodes in, and I cannot believe how good this show is. So check it out, Hannah on Amazon Prime. And guys, I can't get a hold of Jim, so I think I'm just going to call it a show. We have gone.
The person whom you're trying to reach is currently unavailable. Please.
So thank you all so much. Next week, Bruce Marshall with us on Monday, and then Mark Lawrence on Tuesday. And if you like Ralph Michaels, Mark and Ralph, they're part of the same school of thought. So it should be a really interesting show. And make sure to check out the soccer show tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, and Straight from the Strip with Kelly Minty and Gianni the Greek at 3 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I love you all. Be safe. The director, man, thanks so much. I cannot stress how much I appreciate the kind words. Liam
is currently unavailable.
Much, my brother. That's it, boys. Be well. Take care of yourself, and we'll speak to you all next week on Meet the Experts and tomorrow on The Soccer Show.